welcome back everyone to another Mythfall devlog. This week has quite a few updates in a lot of different areas and even some database changes, so it's kind of a big one. But yeah, we'll go through it one by one. Alright, so the first task I wanted to work on was adding items to the Anubis drop table. I kind of made the mistake of trying to release it faster than I should have, and I released it without having a drop table fully completed, and that ended up being kind of annoying for people who played it because now it's this dungeon that doesn't drop anything, so there's no incentive to actually go and do it. And also, I kind of jumped to the end of the game and added a hard dungeon without filling in enough middle dungeons for people to progress to the Anubis dungeon. So I'm trying to rectify those this patch, so we'll see how that goes. But basically I wanted to add a few items to the Anubis drop table. So as you can see here, there's a few new items and those all drop, and then there's this new jackal heart that also drops from the Anubis that can be used for some crafting recipes as well. And yeah, so hopefully that'll make the Anubis dungeon a little bit more palatable to play. I still think it's a fun dungeon. I know it's a little bit hard for people, so I might nerf it in the future, but we'll have to see. I think once I backfill the remaining content that carries the player from the start of the game to the Anubis, to being able to complete the Anubis dungeon, I think it'll make it a little bit more easier to do. So we'll have to get there one step at a time, I think. So we'll add a new dungeon, which will be the Hanging Temple, and that will hopefully make the player bridge the gap a little bit in terms of their character's level. So yeah. That is that change. And I think moving forward, because I was kind of trying to do a deployment every single weekday, and I think that was just too much to keep up with. And I would find myself in this situation where I would have to decide, do I want to deploy this half done thing or do I want to just skip this deployment? And that was a little bit annoying. So now I'm trying to stick to this pattern of doing deployment every single Friday. So kind of my week looks like working through the week, and then on Friday I try to do a new deployment. So this is the Friday for this most recent deployment, which added the bank and the tailor to the game. So yeah. Alright, so the next thing I wanted to do was add boots as a new equipable item type. What I decided to do was I would basically have a white and black coloring of the character's legs, and then I'll just multiply it by the color to basically recolor the boots to be whatever color I wanted them to be, depending on what was equipped. So that's what I ended up doing. So basically how it works is I'll basically take the base character sprite, which recently got changed to just this. I will just overlay it like that and then color it to however I want. So if I wanted it to be red, I would basically just do this sort of multiplication times the white color, which turns it red. Or if I want it to be blue, I can multiply it by blue and then change his pants to whatever color they need to be. So how the mounting works is I basically have a mount point system built into my game for my character sprite. And essentially what we do is I have a origin, which is the black color. Then the green color represents the armor mounting point, which is kind of this chunk of data. And then I have red for hats. And eventually it gets used for hair in the future too, which is another update I did this time around, but I'll talk about that later. But basically, this just lets me know where on the character the sprites need to be overlaid. So for example, when I'm putting the pants, I mount them onto the origin spot, so I can just put them right on top of their legs. That way it overlaps properly and there's no mismatch. And then for armors, I can do the same sort of thing. This gets placed on top of it when it gets drawn. I guess we can just talk about the character configurator too. As part of this update, I made it so that characters can be configured as well. So basically I decided to do the same thing that I did for pants, where it's just white and black, and everything's overlaid, but I did it for every single part of the character. So for example, we have a hair, which is just white and gray, and that lets me multiply it by whatever color I want, which is going to be the hair color. And then this has its origin point up there. You could see how this will just get overlaid onto the mount point like so, and now he's got hair. So essentially, that's kind of how the equipment, hair, and eye overlay works. I do the same thing for eyes. Those mount based off of the head, but those just kind of get placed over like that. So essentially, you can kind of see all of these different pieces, and then they kind of just get put together to generate the final artwork for what the character is going to look like. And then we can color things however we want to basically make the character however we want based off of just a bunch of white sprites. So as you can see, the man sprite is just a white sprite that we multiply by whatever color we want. Same with the hair. For some specific equipments, I will actually just have a full-blown sprite. I don't really do any multiplication. I might change that in the future if I just want to recolor sprites to be something different, but right now none of them are like that. It's only for the boots, the skin color, the eye color, which I don't have open right now, but it's basically just this sprite right here. So basically just that. Yeah, the boots, the skin color, and the hair and the eyes. So that's that change. It was kind of a lot of work. I had the equipment mounting point system already there, so I was able to reuse that, which saved me a lot of time. And yeah, that's how that works. All right, I did go ahead and add several different boot types, as you can see here. I'll just swap between them so you can see them changing their color and getting equipped. Most of the time they just up the speed that the player is able to run at. So the higher level boots let you move a little bit faster. And yeah, that's basically how they work. I'll probably add more interesting stats on boots eventually, and those will probably drop from monsters and bosses and stuff like that. But yeah, these are kind of like the baseline boots that are pretty easy to get. And then additionally, I also added a tailor. That's for the character configuration. So you can basically go through and like pick whatever you want. There's quite a lot of different hairstyles. As you can see, these can just multiply by like a specific hair color. And some of them look like the skin color, so it looks a little bit like some sort of deformity. But yeah, so you can change the hair color as well to a few different colors. You look very old if you want. Then eyes, you can do the same thing, change the eye color. There's a lot of different eye colors. So yeah, there's quite a few of those. But and then for skin, there's also skin colors as well. There's not that many skin colors. It was kind of a hard balance between like I can make like really exotic colors like green and blue and stuff like that. I was just worried that it was going to make people look super weird. So I'm not 100% sure if I'll add those. Maybe I'll add some way to unlock different, more exotic hair color or skin colors and hair colors and stuff like that. But for now, there's like some pretty standard stuff you would normally see. So anyways, yeah. And you can spend honor points. Honor points are the currency you get from dying. You basically get XP when you die. You'll get honor based off of how much XP you got. And you can spend that honor points to customize your character. And also buy more bank space. So that's kind of another update we did, which is up here. This is the new bank. It used to just be a bank chest that just sat around here. But we changed that to a full-blown bank. I was kind of a little bit inspired by RuneScape, where they have like a full bank building. There's like bank tellers and stuff like that. So I wanted to do something similar. So yeah, here's the bank interface now. Let me go die and get some honor. And then we can, I'll show you how the purchasing of things works. Okay, so now we have some honor up here because we died with a lot of XP. And basically, now there's these 2 purchasables you can do. So you basically are given 8 slots, and each slot can hold 8 items. So you're able to stack multiple of the same item in here, up to 8 by default. But then if you want to purchase more slots, you basically click this button, spend 8 honor points, which gets subtracted from up there. And you'll have 16 slots now, and then it just increases by 8 every single time. And then eventually you have like a pretty large bank. There's a scroll you can do to scroll through all of those items. Then you can also increase the stack depth up to 248. That's the number of items you can hold in each bank slot. And this one's a little bit more expensive just because of what it gives you, like the ability to hold tons and tons of the same item. Whereas this, you kind of need a slot for every single unique item in the game. I calculated it, there's maybe 150 or so different items in the game. So it's really not that expensive to get that much. Like I don't think I spent maybe like 300 honor or something like that. And I already have 104 slots. So it's not that bad to get quite a lot of slots. But it is kind of more expensive to get deeper slots that hold more items. So you can purchase this. Now I can hold 16 items in a slot. And then you can obviously move stuff around here and add more stuff to your bank. So yeah, that's that update. That was a very requested one because a lot of people have alternate accounts where before this, everybody had alternate accounts where they would just like log into a separate account to move their stuff over to just like hold it temporarily because there wasn't any stackables. So now that there's stackables, it's a lot easier for people to manage their inventory on a single account. So hopefully that'll help you guys when you're doing this stuff. There was a kind of interesting bug that happened in the crafting. When I added boots, I changed the how the inventory slots laid out. But when the crafting got executed, I hadn't changed the crafting side of things to use the new inventory slot layout. So people were crafting things and they were losing items from their inventory. So a few people, right when I added the boots update, lost a lot of items from crafting things, from trying to craft boots basically, because of the mismatch of slots, how they're shown here and how they get used for crafting. So yeah, I had to go back and actually like give people some items back, but most people didn't care for some reason. So they didn't want their items back, or they didn't lose anything that was that important. But yeah, we got that sorted out. That was a little bit of a problem. And of course that happened on the day where like I deployed it and then I left the house. So I guess the lesson learned there is whenever I deploy, I need to stick around to make sure I didn't break anything. I was very concerned by the bank update that when I deployed that, it was going to cause some issues. So I was like literally sitting on my computer the entire time, like waiting for someone to tell me there was an issue. And so far, I don't think anyone's had any problems. So that's a good thing to see. But I'm still holding out hope that there'll be, or not hope, but I'm sure that there's going to be some issue that pops up because it was a very large change. Alright, so this is the new dungeon that I added. It's called the Hanging Temple. It's basically just a temple filled with monks, and then there's a final like boss monk that you fight. He kind of floats around and does attacks. It's one of the better dungeons that I've designed, I think. I did actually change my config file format, and I experimented on it with this new dungeon. Before I was using YAML to configure all of my things. So for example, kind of the config of the normal monk, and essentially this lets me kind of specify what the monster asset is going to be. But basically I just specify the list of components I want to attach. So for example, he has a specific body, he's on the enemy team, he has a collider, he has 160 health, he has the default bot vision, and then he's got kind of this behavioral tree that looks like this. And then he's got specific loot, which is just dropping health pots sometimes. So I can kind of configure monsters like that. So it's fairly easy. The nice part about doing it in Go is that I can basically program things kind of like how this is working. Like I basically just specify this variable over here that has this predefined things, and I can just like pull this in wherever I want. Whereas when I was doing it in YAML, there's a lot of situations where I'd run into and I would want to like make a variable for something that held a lot of data, and then I would just want to reference that variable somewhere else. So I wasn't able to do that in YAML. But interestingly, the reason I switched over to YAML in the first place as a config file format to specify my monsters was because I wanted to do auto hot reloading. So if I modified the YAML file, it would just kind of propagate into the game. Because originally I did do something like this, but I'd have to rebuild every single time, which was making it really painful to test boss fights and things like that. One of the problems I was having with YAML was that kind of the variable thing that I mentioned before, where I couldn't reference variables very easily, or I couldn't create variables easily. That was a problem. The other problem was my game would crash a lot because I would have some typo in the YAML, or I would have something that configured some like component to be some weird value that the code couldn't handle. So there's a lot of like little configuration problems that I run into that caused my game to crash, and that was a little bit painful. It's also a little bit annoying to not have static typing in your config file, and I can do things like this where it's body monk, and then there's this hot or this auto completion thing that pops up, and I can kind of go through the different things that I might want to pick for this. So for example, I want to pick that one, I just click it, or I hit enter or tab or whatever, auto completes that line. There's a lot of nice features that come with the LSP of Golang. It's a little bit more dense to look at because of the static typing. I think that's a pretty good balance for what I want, because it is very nice to just have some programming interface to build my data set. But anyways, this is what I experimented with when I was making the monk dungeon, and I think I'm pretty happy with it. How I do it now to support a hot reloading still is I basically take this data and I serialize it to a binary file, and that binary file gets read in as kind of like the equivalent YAML, but it's just serialized to binary. But anyways, I'm pretty happy with how this turned out. I think I'll do this for all of the future dungeons. I'm probably not going to migrate my old code over though, just because I have so many monsters and it would have taken a really long time to migrate them all to this new format. But I'll keep experimenting with this, and I'll let you guys know how it goes. Maybe one day I'll be like, this was a bad idea, and I'll switch to something else. But you know, it's always in the search for the most optimal way to build things. Hopefully we've found it here, but you never know. So well, that's all I have for this week. As always, an absolutely massive thank you to all the supporters on YouTube, Twitch, GitHub, and Patreon. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time.